Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to watch my ranking of all 7 Mission Impossible movies. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video, a ranking of all 7 Mission Impossible films, including the newly released Dead Reckoning Part 1, which, by the way, that title is a complete mouthful to say. But before I get into this thing, be sure to hit that like button, comment down below your ranking of all 7 Mission Impossible films, and of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 85,000 subscribers here on the channel. And check out my Patreon link down below. Any support goes a long way. You get early access to videos like this one, which went up about a week ago on my Patreon, access to the Discord server where we're talking movies, shows, and Mission Impossible, and more, so check it out, link down below. And before we dive into this ranking, I want to preface by saying I think this is the premier action franchise to date. There's not an outright bad Mission Impossible movie in my eyes. Even the one outlier that's in last place for me, I think has redeemable qualities. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Coming in at number 7 for me is Mission Impossible 2. This is the consensus bottom movie in this franchise, but it's not as horrible as it's made out to be, in my opinion. It is directed by John Woo, so automatically it's gonna have some pretty cool action sequences. And I think the last 40 minutes of this film is where that really reigns true. You've got a motorcycle chase scene, a lab shootout scene that's super intense, and then this hand-to-hand fight on the beach between Ethan Hunt and the main villain that's super dramatic for really no reason, but it's still pretty damn cool, I can't lie. So this movie has entertainment value, and there's moments where I'm like, oh, I see the vision here. So as entertaining as this movie can be with the over-the-top action, it unfortunately gets bogged down by a painfully uninteresting main plotline regarding the Chimera virus, which is essentially this virus that over the course of a certain amount of hours slowly destroys the human body. And there's a lot of this pharmaceutical jargon thrown around that just completely makes me check out whenever I watch it. And there's honestly really cheesy, laughably bad moments in this film. I understand why it receives so much flack for being the worst Mission Impossible film, because it feels like the outlier or the black sheep. Like, there are moments where I'm like, this isn't something Ethan Hunt would do as a character, and it was almost to the point of just being ridiculous. So this movie has a lot of issues, don't get me wrong. There's literally a scene where Ethan Hunt and the main girl character, whose name's escaping me, are like dancing like tango style with their cars, like on the road. It's really bizarre. There is a cheesy main romance storyline, and all around, it is just an over-dramatic movie, but it's got some entertainment value. I still love to see Ethan Hunt kick ass, and it's like my lowest positive score I can give a movie. That's what I give Mission Impossible 2. From here on out, there's a massive jump in quality. Like, from 6 through 1, the lowest rated film for me is 4 out of 5 stars. So number 6 for me right now is Mission Impossible 3, which is a movie that I thoroughly enjoy. J.J. Abrams directs it. It feels fresh in the franchise coming off the heels of Mission Impossible 2. And the, without question, highlight of this movie is Philip Seymour Hoffman as the villain. Where's the rabbit's foot, Ethan? He commits, and it shows. I mean, Philip Seymour Hoffman, rest in peace. One of the premier actors of our time, I would say. I mean, he delivered multiple Oscar-worthy performances, and his turn as the villain here really works for me. He is intimidating as all get out, and there's one scene where he's talking to Ethan after he's been captured, and he's like, do you have a girlfriend or wife? Someone you love? 'Cause I'm gonna hurt her. I'm gonna hurt her real bad. I'm gonna make her bleed. I was like, oh my god. From the opening scene, it really cements Philip Seymour Hoffman as a real threat. It's also a movie that uses masks for trickeration constantly and has those classic Mission Impossible fake out moments, which we've come to love in this franchise over the years. But it's got some damn great action as well. The whole movie, they're trying to find the rabbit's foot, and we never really get an answer as to what it is. That never irked me too much, I'll be honest. It's really interesting to see this new take on Ethan Hunt, where he's trying to settle down, have a nice quiet life with his soon-to-be wife, but of course he gets called back into the field because it's what he was meant to do. So he's struggling to find this balance, and I think that it really worked, added to the intensity of the film at times, because you really care about this relationship between Ethan and his wife, and that's put in peril later on in the film. And of course, the opening of the movie kind of has us on edge the entire time. Like, I love when a movie opens with sort of a climactic moment, and then it's like, let's travel back in time and see how we got to this moment. That is what Mission Impossible 3 does. On top of that, the color grading and just the editing of the film makes it feel like a damn Saw movie at times. Very oversaturated in colors and like a little bit of a shaky cam going on there. It adds to the intensity and the realism of the film. And overall, this is just a really good Mission Impossible flick. It just so happens to be that all the other ones I have in front of it, I just prefer more, and that's kind of the name of the game with a franchise of this high caliber. So my number 5 is Mission Impossible, the one that started it all, came out in 1996, and to this day, when I go back and rewatch it, it still trips me up. Like, I've seen this movie a handful of times, but no matter how many times I watch it, It's such a clever script that each time there's like a new reveal in the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what happened here. It's just a really smart spy movie. This film set the template for the rest of the franchise in terms of trickeration and really misdirecting the audience, because in the first 20 to 25 minutes of Mission Impossible, anything you thought was going to happen didn't happen, and it fully probably had your jaw on the floor the first time you saw it. At least for me, I was like, what is going on right now? I won't spoil it just in case you guys haven't seen it, but you probably have. The movie also came out in the 1990s, so it's been a while if you haven't seen it. Mission Impossible, like I mentioned, is responsible for launching this entire franchise, so I have to give respect where its respect is due. The Langley scene in like the second act is the highlight of this movie by far. Even if you haven't seen Mission Impossible, you've seen a clip from this scene or a screenshot where Ethan Hunt is hanging down, dangling over the floor, going like that, and just the way they set it up, where if the temperature of the room changes, if a sweat droplet or anything hits the floor, the alarm goes off. It is such a well-directed scene. Brian De Palma actually directed this, and if you've seen the movie Blowout with John Travolta, which I believe came out in like the early 1980s, it's very reminiscent of that at times. He has a distinct style and it shines through, and that's what I will kind of commend the early first 4 Mission Impossible films for, is each one had a new directorial style, and that shines, especially in this first movie. You also have a star-studded cast with Jon Voight. Emilio Estevez has a small role in here. All around, I dig the hell out of the first Mission Impossible, and it is one of those movies that you really have to pay attention for. It set the foundation for the rest of the franchise with these sort of exposition dump scenes or intense dialogue-driven scenes where it's like, you have to fully pay attention here. You can't just turn your brain off, and I appreciate it for that, because it stayed true to its roots all the way up until the most recent film. Mission Impossible 1 is like a classic 90s action thriller to me. I never get sick of it. Sure, there is some questionable special effects in the third act, but it came out in the late 90s, so I can't really blame it. The Langley scene is brilliantly directed, and that is how you create tension in movies. There's just so many moving pieces that you can't help but hold your breath watching it. Mission Impossible 1, classic movie, but this franchise has evolved so much that the next 4 movies are just leaps and bounds better than the first 3 films, but that doesn't mean the first 3 films are bad necessarily. So moving on to my number 4, I've got Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Now I want to clarify or make clear, I've only seen this movie once as of recording this ranking. It's a movie that I think requires multiple viewings to fully appreciate, and so when I rewatch this film, it could definitely make the leap higher up on my list, but as it stands right now, my top 4 Mission Impossible films are all 4.5 out of 5 or higher, which is a damn high score for me. Dead Reckoning Part 1 is a movie that rules. It honestly amazes me, I said this in my review, it amazes me that this franchise continues to outdo itself in terms of these death-defying stunts and action that just blows your mind. Tom Cruise is so dedicated to the audience as watching these films, and he wants to bring you this insane experience. You guys know what I'm talking about if you've seen the marketing for this movie at all. There's a motorcycle stunt that's wild. It's probably the craziest one to date in the franchise, but it's even wilder within the context of the story, and you actually know the stakes involved. It makes it that much better. Each act of this film has a new action sequence that just builds and builds to a very tense finale that left me satisfied. This is how you do a part 1. It fully, left me fulfilled, but I'm still ready for part 2. It's not like we just cut to black, like it had a definitive ending, it wrapped up the story here, but it's gonna roll right into part 2, and I'm excited for that. Now, if I have to knock this movie ever so slightly, it is because it gets a little too convoluted for its own good in the middle act. There's like a big exposition dump scene, and I'm aware this franchise is sort of built on exposition dumps. You can't really get through one of these movies without having the scene where a bunch of things are explained to you real quickly and everyone's talking fast. Like, if you check out for one split second, you could miss something later on in the film. That's why I mentioned that I think a rewatch will really benefit me, because it's a 2-hour, 43-minute long movie, and so there was damn sure 1 or 2 lines that I didn't fully process. That just happens, it's inevitable, but a rewatch will definitely help out with that. And I do want to mention that I think there is a certain aspect of this film regarding the villain that a lot of people are probably going to have mixed emotions on. It doesn't bother me because I feel like it's relevant. I feel like it's based in reality still, especially with certain trends that are going around online and discussions within the film industry itself. I felt like it was really pertinent and belonged in this movie and doesn't feel that outlandish, but I think it will bother some people. I've definitely grown on it, and I think we'll get more clarity regarding this entity I'm referring to in part 2, But overall, Dead Reckoning Part 1 is a movie you gotta see on the big screen. It's one of those summer movie blockbusters that kicks ass. It delivers on riveting action, and that's why I go to a Mission Impossible film. Sure, it's got a compelling plot and characters that I give a damn about, which is huge, especially when a lot of these action movies have lame characters. Like Ethan Hunt, I really care about him and the crew in this film. But the action is top-notch. It delivers in that, and Dead Reckoning Part 1, over time, could even make its way higher on this list, specifically after we see Part 2. But number 3 on my list is Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. This is the 5th film, and the first film that Christopher McQuarrie came on to direct. Rogue Nation is awesome, but it's also one of those movies that I had to watch multiple times to fully comprehend, because I was 15 when it came out, so I wasn't the best listener at the time. I'm now 23, so I've seen the movie more and more, and the older I get and the more I rewatch it, I'm able to understand it fully and appreciate it even more. Of course, the action is amazing here. You got Tom Cruise hanging off the side of a plane in the opening, the underwater sequence. Like, anytime someone has to hold breath in a movie, I just really clench up and get nervous for them. And the underwater scene is phenomenal. And then, of course, the opera scene. I mean, my God, this film has really intense action. It knows exactly what it's doing, but it's one of the smarter Mission Impossible films with the introduction of the Syndicate. It's sort of complex at times, but that's what makes a Mission Impossible movie so great, is that you get these big reveals in the third act, and I feel like there's a lot of payoff. This movie, not only action-packed, but one of, if not the most clever films in the franchise. I dig Rogue Nation quite a bit, and I almost went number 2 with it, but my number 2, my runner-up in the Mission Impossible franchise, is Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. This is the 4th Mission Impossible film, and it's where, in my eyes, the franchise really skyrocketed into the next level in terms of giving us elite action. This is the movie, if you don't know, where Tom Cruise is dangling off the side of the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building. That scene right there is so incredible. I was 11 when this movie came out, and I saw it twice in theaters at the time because I was so in awe of this scene. And watching the behind-the-scenes featurettes on it makes me appreciate it even more the older I get. Of course, that action scene is awesome. You've got a lot of new technological advancements here with the Kremlin break-in scene and some cool technology there. Jeremy Renner's character, Brand, is introduced in this film as well, so it's got a great group of characters. Like, the main team dynamic is there. The action is top-notch, and the main plot is a little simple. Sure, they're just trying to stop this guy from getting these nuclear codes and setting off a nuke, but that is very intense. That's high stakes. That's what I come to a Mission Impossible film for, and this film is thrilling from the beginning. It's perfectly paced. It's got memorable moments, humor, and it's one of the most rewatchable Mission Impossible films to date. I do think that it peaks in the second act with the Burj Khalifa scene, but nothing that was going to follow that would ever reach the height, literally, of that sequence. It is just so special, and I know they couldn't have put it in the third act just because of where it takes place within the narrative, but they were never going to top that in the third act. So I guess if I have to knock this movie a bit, it's that the third act isn't as memorable as the second act. But overall, it is a very high-stakes, fun thrill ride that I come to love. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, damn good movie, but my number 1 film in the Mission Impossible franchise is the only 5 out of 5 for me in this franchise, Mission Impossible Fallout. This is the 6th film in the franchise, and one of the best action movies, period. Like, each act of this movie has an even more impressive action sequence than the previous, and it ultimately culminates in an adrenaline rush of a final act. I mean, talk about the stakes being high in a Mission Impossible film. There's a moment in that final act where my heart just dropped. The first time I saw this movie, I was like, oh my God, did they fail? Like, it fully faked me out at the very end. But you've got the introduction of Henry Cavill here being this badass sort of rival of Ethan Hunt at times. There is some incredibly well choreographed fight scenes, notably in the bathroom, but also there's some chase scenes that will have you on the edge of your seat. The IMAX helicopter showdown is wonderful, and I could just go on and on. This movie really is an achievement in action filmmaking. The stakes are felt from the opening, which to me makes it one of the most immersive Mission Impossible films. It's got those classic Mission Impossible fake outs, the team camaraderie that really works. The main mission becomes so personal for Ethan, and the fate of the world literally is on the line. Also, this has the best score out of any of the Mission Impossible films. There's multiple tracks that send chills down my spine, and the score really just enhances so many scenes in this movie, whether that's adding to the intensity or maybe even making a moment more emotional. Like, there are moments where I just feel so much relief in this film. and the score plays a big part in that. I said it once and I'll say it again, but Mission Impossible Fallout is the best Mission Impossible film, one of the best action films ever made, and truly is an achievement in filmmaking, not only for action movies, but just movies in general. It's that damn good, and I don't know if the franchise will ever be able to reach this height again, but again, that's not a knock at the films below this, because this movie is on another level in terms of action filmmaking. But that's just my ranking of all 7 Mission Impossible films. Again, multiple of those films are like a 4.5 out of 5 or higher, so this is the best action franchise to date, and it's not even close in my mind. Be sure to drop your ranking of these films in the comments down below and hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 85,000 subscribers here on the channel. And check out my Patreon link down below. If you want early access to videos like this one, which was posted a week early, you can get that over there, as well as access to the Discord server, exclusive videos, live Q&As, and more. Anything goes a long way, so check out my Patreon link down below. But that's going to do it for my ranking of these movies. Stay tuned for more Mission Impossible content coming very soon, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.